So I am doing this review a little bit later than I anticipated because I just got back home. But yeah, we have now officially find out what is the matchup for MLS Cup 2019, and for the third MLS Cup in the last 4 years, we are going to have a MLS Cup matchup between the Seattle Sounders and Toronto FC. Now, I know people are going to be moaning about the fact that, well, it's basically once again Seattle versus TFC, and that we already have seen this matchup before and it's kind of getting a little bit boring, and that I'm pretty sure some people say parity is not a thing anymore in MLS are going to use this as an evidence of why that is the case. But to me, I actually don't mind the fact that TFC and Seattle face off each other in this MLS Cup and face off each other for the third time in 4 years. Mainly because, one, this is the rubber match in terms of seeing who, of course, are going to able to win this kind of mini free game series in terms of Seattle versus TFC in MLS Cup. But it's also the fact that I don't think a lot of people thought that this was going to be the matchup this year in MLS Cup. Like, seriously, if anyone thought that this year MLS Cup matchup, even before the playoff begin, that it's going to be Seattle versus TFC, I really need to let you leave your comments below and put a picture of the bracket that you filled out that says Seattle versus TFC in MLS Cup, because I don't think a lot of people thought that that was going to be the case, especially, when you look at the Sounders, they didn't have a bad season this year, but I always thought that they were probably one or two big injury to their starters away from potentially just collapse in the playoffs because they're such a fragile kind of team, and they've been very fortunate that they haven't really suffered any those injuries to their star-studded starting 11, which is the reason why they, of course, got all the way to MLS Cup. And then for Toronto FC, I mean, what can I say about TFC that I haven't said that have really shocked me in terms of the fact that they have reached to this point of the season? I mean, I thought this was a rebuilding year for TFC, and looking how things gone in the middle of the summer, how this team was below the red line, and it looked like there was no real direction of what this team is going forward, and that even when they did get above the playoff line, I thought this was going to be a one and done team because, they just simply don't have enough going for, or at least when they do not have Pozuelo and Altidore on the same pitch, they just don't have enough in terms of going forward to knock out team. Well, not only they have completely proved me wrong on this, but they have now got into MLS Cup, and that they, of course, got to MLS Cup by beating Atlanta United 2-1 in this game, and that this was just a game where if I had to sum up this game in just a short 20-second clip for those people that don't want to watch the full review and don't want me to kind of analyze what I saw in this game, well, I'll just say that this was just one of those games where the dominant team had all the chances and had all the possession, but they weren't able to put away those chances and wasn't very clinical in terms of their finishing and final product, and that the opponent, who was absorbing so much pressure in this game, they picked the right moment in terms of scoring goals, and they were by far the more clinical side, and that is why that team, of course, won. I mean, it's just kind of one of those games where sometimes, just because you dominate the stat line doesn't mean you basically will win the game. And this is also kind of an example in the playoffs too, where, this kind of stuff does happen in the playoffs, and that narrative really can change very quickly. And in this case, the first 15-minute spell really tells the story of what this game was going to be happening going forward, and that I really think that during that spell there was one moment that really changed this game, and that really kind of defied the fact that TFC was going to potentially win this game, and that maybe Atlanta might actually get upset in this one. But first of all, Parkhurst, he actually returned it to the starting 11, which is definitely a good news. The fact that, I was really hoping that that injury that he suffered against New England wasn't a devastating injury that would potentially end his season and also end his career, since he's retiring at the end of the season. But unfortunately for TFC, Josie Altidore was not available in this game. He was not available in the starting 11 or on the bench, although I'm pretty sure a lot of TFC fans already realized that, because there was already reports that he did not train with the team and that he did not make the trip down to Atlanta for this game, so that most likely he was not going to be in the starting 11 or on the bench. Now, in the first half, 4 minutes into this game, Julian Gresso scores from Pity Martinez and Barco, and this was kind of a little bit of a deja vu from the last game where Atlanta got off to a great start, and that this goal was a result of TFC decide to gamble in terms of trying to play a high line, but Pity Martinez beats the offside trap with a perfect run, and that he basically gone one-on-one with Westberg, and that you see many times when players go one-on-one in that situation, they tends to be very selfish and trying to take a shot so that they of course can grab the goal and grab all the heroic, but not Pity Martinez in this instant. He unselfishly passed to a wide open Gresso, who basically tapped it into the empty net, and just like that, Atlanta United was up 1-0 in this game. Now, a couple of seconds later, I was also kind of questioned why on earth TFC was playing such a high line and playing the offside trap in this game. I understand the fact that I'm pretty sure Greg Vanny really want his team to get the first goal in this game so it can basically settle the nerves and quiet down the crowd. But when you decided to play such a high line against Atlanta and you decided to just expose yourself at the back, which the back line of TFC hasn't been very good this season. Yeah, this looked like it was going to be a recipe of disaster. And we kind of saw in the first goal that they could see was because of the fact that they play such a high line and try to play an offside trap, and that they try to take a gamble on that. It didn't pay off, and they were made to punish on that. And it looked like they were going to be made to punish again in the 6th minute when Michael Bradley actually brought down Pity Martinez in the box, which gives a penalty for Atlanta. And that, again, Atlanta, they saw TFC trying to play a high line, and they realized that, if you're going to try to play a high line on us, we're just going to loft the ball over the top and over your heads and see if you can, of course, deal with that. And oh, by the way, we have playmakers that can do that and put a perfect long ball over the top of your high line defense. And that it was the case in this situation where the ball comes over the top and that it basically beats the TFC backline. Pity Martinez basically kind of got behind the TFC backline, and Michael Bradley had no choice in terms of trying to slide in to try to get the ball, which he wasn't able to do. So yeah, Atlanta, they got a penalty, and it looked like at that point, with Joseph Martinez stepping up from the spot, and knowing the fact that Joseph Martinez throughout this season has been just so clinical in front of the spot, this looked like this conference final was going to be all over for TFC before we even got into the 10th minute. But Quentin Westberg made a huge save to deny Joseph Martinez from the spot. It wasn't a really bad penalty from Martinez. I mean, he didn't do the hoppity Scott that he usually do in terms of his penalty run up, but this was just a great save from Westberg where he basically guessed the right way and makes a save in terms of that. And I really think this play, I know a lot of people are going to say that the goal by De Leon in the 78th minute, which was the winner for TFC in this game, really changed the game in this matchup and really was a defining moment in this match. But I really think, in my opinion, this save was a defining moment of this game, because have TFC gone down 2-0 in this game, have Martinez actually put away this penalty, I can guarantee you 99.9% that there was no way back for TFC. Like, I was thinking that, Atlanta was going to potentially go 3 or 4-0. And I know, as I said in the preview, Atlanta, despite the fact that sometimes they score goals in a bunch, they sometimes kind of let off the foot a little bit. But the way that I saw how TFC kind of play and their approach in the first 10 minutes, it looked like it was just going to be an absolute disaster and that Atlanta is just going to completely run riots and just end this tie before we even got started. But because of that save, that gives life to TFC, and boy, did they take advantage of that life. Just 4 minutes later, Benezet scores an absolute golazo from Lawrence Simon. It was a great curling goal from Benezet, but I kind of also have to question the fact that where in the world was the closing down for Atlanta United? And that won't be the first time that I question Atlanta defense in terms of not closing down guys that had acres of space to try to take a pot shot at goal. But still, despite the fact that the game was tied up, Atlanta, they continue to look like the better team, and they were continued to putting those long ball where, the TFC backline, they were still playing a high line, and I just wonder, eventually they are going to get burned. Now, to be fair, they kind of stopped playing that high line eventually and kind of sit back a little bit, and I think Greg Vanney realized that, yeah, this was a mistake of us trying to play a high line and try to do an offside trap on Atlanta. So the team kind of started to sit in a little bit deeper, but the problem with that is that means that they are just getting pinned back into their own half, and this is why Atlanta was just so dominant in this game and had all the possession in this one. In the 35th minute, Atlanta had a chance to retake the lead on a free kick from about 24 yards out, but Ezekiel Barco hits the wall, and that I also wrote TFC defense has been bending, but somehow it hasn't break despite the fact that they are having a lot of actually that it shouldn't say having, it should be saying having a lot of trouble in terms of containing this Atlanta attack. And I actually left my red pen over there, but just pretend that there's a having text right here in this blank spot. And yeah, they were really having a lot of trouble in terms of containing this Atlanta's attack, and that I thought eventually this TFC defense was going to break, which it didn't happen at the end of the first half, but I thought it was maybe going to happen in the second half. And it turns out in the second half, it was basically the same story. Atlanta was completely dominating this game. They were all over TFC. TFC, they looked like they was just hanging on for dear life, and that it was just a matter of time before Atlanta potentially get the next goal. And then they had a chance to do that in the 57th minute after a poor giveaway from TFC allowed Joseph Martinez to go one-on-one with Westberg. Although, because he kind of went one-on-one with Quentin Westberg from a tight angle, he wasn't able to put the shot on target, and that it actually hits the side netting. And that 9 minutes later, he also had another chance on a one-on-one situation, but it was denied by Quentin Westberg, which after a couple of seconds, the flag actually went up for offside. So, yeah, Atlanta, they had chances to potentially get that second goal, but they just weren't able to put it away, and that they kind of really lacked that final product, which has just been a problem for Atlanta this playoffs, and that you have seen so many times, even when they looked like they were dominating the game and that they looked like they were about to get into second and third gear, they just never got to that point, and that this was just kind of an example of it. And that the crowd was started to get very nervous and frustrated with the team inability to retake the lead, and that I feel like the longer this game was going to stay 1-1, the more I am very concerned that TFC eventually is going to have that one magical moment that they are able to get and potentially take the lead for the first time in this game. And would you believe that magical moment happened in the 78th minute when De Leon scored an absolute golazo from Pozuelo, and I also wrote GOTP, which stands for goal of the playoff. I mean, De Leon has scored a couple of very nice goals in this playoffs. I remember he scored an amazing goal against DC United, which of course that was the goal that it made it 5-1 in favor of TFC in that crazy first half of extra time. But this one was equally as good with the way that he was able to just kind of strike that one top bin from about 25 yards out, and that despite the fact that it was also a nice goal from De Leon, I once again have to question where in the world was the closing down from Elena. Like, why in the world are they just kind of backing up and hope that they, of course, can maybe let TFC in terms of trying to take a pot shot from outside the box? And especially, why are you backing up on a guy that have already done this postseason of putting an absolute banger from top bins, and now you're basically doing it again, and you basically got paid for that. I mean, it was just horrendous defending from Elena in that situation, but take nothing away from De Leon in terms of just completely changes this game and completely just turned this game on its heads, because there was not many people thought that TFC was going to potentially get a winner after 90 minutes, and that most likely TFC would just hang on for dear life and hope to try to go to extra time or even go to penalties so that they can move on to MLS Cup final. But that's the beauty of the playoffs. Like, you could be playing bad, or you could just get absolutely dominated by your opponent, but if you can come up with one magical moment, that is all it takes in terms of moving on into the next round, or in this case, moving on into MLS Cup. Then in the 88th minute, Michael Parkhurst was actually subbed off in this game, and I want to write that because, it's unfortunate that 10 minutes later we found out that he unfortunately has played his last game in his career, and definitely with the career that he has in MLS, this was definitely not the way that he was envisioned to end his career, and that it's kind of almost as similar as what happened to Chad Marshall earlier this season, where it was kind of an unfortunate way to end his career. But, what a career Michael Parkhurst has had, and that I think if it wasn't for Chad Marshall, that has just been, in my opinion, the best defender of the year, he would arguably grab that title as the best defender of the year. And that most likely, I think, after he does end his playing career, something tells me that he is definitely going to be going into coaching, knowing the fact that he is just such a leader in terms of whenever he's on the pitch and whenever he is taking control of the back line. But after Parkhurst, of course, was subbed off, Elena basically just threw the kitchen sink at TFC, but they just could not quite find that equalizer. And that, at the end of the day, TFC was able to hang on in this game by winning 2-1 against Elena. And in terms of the shots in this game, this is where I, of course, mentioned earlier that this was just one of those games where when you look at the stats, you think, how in the world did the team that dominate the stats did not win this game? Elena had 19 shots in this game compared to 4 that TFC had. They had 5 shots on goal compared to 4 that TFC had. So TFC actually, believe it or not, had all of their shots on goal in this game, which I think that's the first time I've ever seen a team in a game to have all their shots in a game on target. I mean, it's not very often you see 100% shots on goal ratio in terms of the shots a team had in a game. But in terms of shots off target, they have 7 compared to none that TFC had. And block shots, it's also 7 compared to none that TFC had. And Atlanta had 59% possession compared to 41% possession that TFC had. And that overall, like I said, this was just one of those games where the team that had that magical moment and able to absorb all the pressure against an opposition that wasn't showing their clinical finish and lack that final product is the reason why they win that game. And this is why I said coming into this game that I feel like this could be one of the biggest Achilles and downfall of Atlanta, is that if they do get an early goal and they aren't able to get that second goal and try to put that into second or third gear in terms of their attacking talent, they could definitely be in trouble. And that the opposition, it doesn't take much if they have like one magical moment or just a lucky deflection, and all of a sudden this game, of course, tied up. And that they kind of got away of that in the first two games, but in this one they didn't get away with it. And that instead of them, of course, aren't able to get away with them by giving up a goal late to potentially send this to extra time, they actually gave a goal late just to get eliminated from the playoffs this season. So yeah, overall it's definitely a very unexpected result, and I'm pretty sure for Atlanta fans that has to be a very painful result with the way that they dominate the whole game, but yet they just have nothing to show for. And as for TFC, I mean, it's just been a Cinderella run that they have, and that I know to say that they have gone on a Cinderella run compared to the name of Toronto FC is kind of a little bit crazy, because TFC for the last couple of years have been one of the best team in MLS. Well, minus what happened last year when things just kind of fall apart. But really, they kind of defied the odds in these free playoff games that they are in, and that I won't be surprised the fact that in the next game against Seattle, they would once again defy the odds and potentially go on the road and beat Seattle in the game. And that you would think maybe in that game they, of course, will get Altidore back in that game so that they at least have some sort of attacking kind of power. But yeah, I won't be surprised if they could potentially win MLS Cup this year. But that discussion is going to be something that I will have when we get closer to MLS Cup next week. I mean, we actually have 10 days before MLS Cup begins, so there's still a lot that can change in terms of the storyline, and I'm going to try to kind of do some news of the week, which I know I kind of lied to you guys that I was supposed to do a news of the week last week, but unfortunately I kind of got caught up a little bit. So I'll make sure I'll try to do news of the week either tomorrow or on Friday and talk about what has happened that has happened in MLS during the postseason and also leading up to MLS Cup. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.